Public Works Procurement and Contracting Committee meeting for Wednesday, July 17th, 2019 will be called to order. Roll call, please.
Calling the roll, Mr. Tuma.
Here.
Mr. Miller. Here. Ms. Conwell. Present. Mr. Schrein. Here. Ms. Baker. Here. There is a quorum.
Okay, and if we could have, is there any public comment this morning?
No, Mr. Chair, no one is signed in.
Okay, and if we could have approval of the minutes from the June 19th, 2019 meeting? We have a motion, and could I have a second? Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from June 19th, 2019. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. And Madam Clerk, if we could have the first matter referred to committee, and I believe we're going to go to item C first, the Metro Health legislation.
Resolution number 2019-0156, authorizing a purchase and sale agreement with the Metro Health System for the transfer of certain excess county-owned real property no longer needed for public use, located on the southeast quadrant of the intersection of West 25th Street and Sackett Avenue.
Okay, and if you could just state your name for the record.
Good morning, Greg Huth, currently with the Law Department, but at the time this deal first came to the county, I was in the Development Department, so that's why I'm here today. There is a proposed substitute in front of you on this item. It has to do with a piece of property that Metro Health has been using for I don't know how many years as a parking lot. It's on their main campus on 25th Street, immediately north of the outpatient campus, the outpatient facility. I've been driving past this site for 20 years, and for all that time it's been owned and operated, or not owned, operated and maintained by Metro Health as a parking lot. They've approached us about transferring it over to their foundation so that they can develop it as affordable housing for the neighborhood. It's all part of their plan to redevelop that neighborhood around Metro Health. Dr. Boutros from the hospital is here, as well as Greg Zucca, who's kind of running the community development project for them. So we'd ask for your consideration. We do ask that this be moved along as for a second reading because of the timing that they're trying to meet with the deadline they have for a tax credit project that's run through the city.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Mr. Miller?
Director, how is the substitute different than the introduced version?
Certainly, Mr. Chairman of the Councilman, the original ordinance, because we wanted to keep this thing on a schedule, we introduced it as though it being transferring the property to Metro, but this re-identifies the grantee as, the ultimate grantee as the foundation.
Okay, and I'd like to make a motion that we accept the substitute version as the version before the committee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept the substitute version of R 2019-0156. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay.
Thank
The
you.
ayes have it.
And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to the folks from Metro so they can talk a
Okay.
little bit about what they have planned for the site.
Okay, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, and if you could step and just state your name for the record, and thank you for being here this morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. I'm Dr. Akram Boutros, President and CEO of the Metro Health System, and also Chairman and President of CCH Development Corporation, which is a wholly owned subsidiary of the Metro Health System, whose sole purpose is to, charitable purpose is to benefit and support the Metro Health System.
Okay, and if you could just explain the purpose of this legislation, this project here.
So just a general background, as we're trying to improve the health care of the community, it's part of the mission of the Metro Health System, leading the way to a healthier you and a healthier community. It has been identified that 80% of health outcomes in the county is not dependent on the medical care provided. That 80% is what are known as social determinants of health. Those social determinants of health include such things as transportation, safe housing, food, insecurity, and many other obstacles that people face. As a part of our overall plan, Metro Health has introduced many programs and will be introducing additional programs to deal with the social determinants of health. One of these programs is focused on housing for our employees to move into the neighborhood and to provide safe, affordable housing for them, and also to provide safe, affordable housing in immediate vicinity. So what we're proposing is to, with the building of a new garage that can take can take on these additional cars, we would like to utilize this piece of property to put up between 57 and 75 affordable housing units aimed at 30% to 80% of the median income of the area. We have been working with this with Chairman Dan Brady, as this is his district. We've been working with Councilwoman Jasmine Santana from the City of Cleveland, the Metro West Development Corporation, and the City of Cleveland to provide this. This would be the largest affordable housing project in the Metro West District for decades, and will provide very different housing compared to what is normally available stock for affordable housing. It will also aim at the lowest tranche of affordable housing, that 30%. Very few people will do that. So in order to be able to provide this in relationship with our developer, it needs to be titled in the CCH Development Corporation name. And I think before you are two drawings, one showing the outpatient pavilion and the Sackett lot with the building kind of situated on it, next to Metro Health Drive and 25th Street. Sackett is the far street, and the squiggly street is Metro Health Drive. West 25th Street is up top, and Scranton Road is the bottom. And this is a rendering of what the building would look like, with the first floor having economic development opportunity area of about 4,500 square feet. And also it will probably house the Tri-C Access Center, which will provide education for the community as well. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Okay, my colleagues have a few. I saw Mr. Schron's hand go up first, and then we'll start with Mrs. Conwell after that.
Good morning, Dr. Boutros.
Good morning.
The funding for the building itself, what's the scope and how does that go forward? The land is only one piece of it, so.
Yeah, so we have, the capital stack includes low-income housing tax credit. We believe it'll be between $1 million and $250,000, which can translate in about $10 million worth of funding. The remainder is going to be provided by us and our development partner.
Okay, you won't be coming to the county for any funding on the building?
No, none of the housing projects will be coming to the county. We're happy to accept your money.
No, I wasn't offering it.
Should you offer it, we'll be happy. Just want to tell you.
I was merely trying to get ahead of the questions.
No, there will be no request for county funding for this.
And the land is just being transferred to you folks?
Yeah, so, and it goes to CCH Development Corporation. The only beneficiary of CCH Corporation is the Metro Health System. The only beneficiary of the Metro Health System is the County of Cuyahoga. Okay. So if everything, I'm just taking things to the extreme, if things fold, you own the property once again.
Okay. And we're actually transferring it to you in fee simple, or is this a land use that for a lease use?
Yeah, just fee simple.
Okay, thank you.
Such a lawyer. That's okay. It's okay. Ms. Conwell?
I play one on during my spare time.
I never play a doctor.
Yeah, well, I ain't gonna say anything.
Through the chair to Dr. Boutros. Was this housing originally included in the Metro Transformation Plan?
No, it was not. The transformation project, and including the bonds that were secured, were just for Metro Health and the park. The remainder of the dollars are being sought from philanthropic and other uses. So it would not impact any of our commitments to that transformation project.
How many units will be for low-income housing?
57 to 72,
Okay,
depending on how much low-income tax credit we receive.
but you mentioned employees would also live
Oh,
in
that's a
there.
whole different program, and
different.
Metro Health is doing that on its own also to revitalize the neighborhood.
Okay, so this will be primarily just low-income housing.
This is the first, and it's only low and moderate income housing.
And how will residents be able to get into this housing?
Just first come, first serve. Metro West Development Corporation is helping us with this project, and they've been able to manage that very well.
So no partnerships with CMHA or anything like that?
CMHA is aware of it. They're sending us the list of individuals who are waiting for housing, and we will be delighted to work with them as well.
Is the garage attached to this?
No, the garage is in the way back of the hospital. So we moved many of our employees to that lot already, and we have access capacity of about 300 spots, and we'll move about these additional ones there.
And if this goes through, how long will it take you to build?
We expect to open in 2020.
Thank you.
Doctor, one quick question. So what decision, or how did you come to the decision that affordable housing was needed in this particular area versus something else?
Oh, they're literally, and I'm sorry I didn't bring them, innumerable studies that show that housing in this area is, especially affordable housing, is significantly substandard. There's lots of lead paint, lots of issues that are posing significant risk to them.
Okay.
And none of the houses that have been put in place, I apologize. One exception, the Lion Mills project, which I think was 32 units? 36 units, excuse me, which was put in 2.5 years ago, and we helped with that project to have it come to fruition. We petitioned the mayor to be able to provide the long-term tax credit for that, which is about also the same amount. That had some minor amenities for the individual, very much like how we're going to build the housing. What we're trying to do with the first floor of that, which is unique, is to provide services for the entire community. Again, like I said, the Tri-C Access Center, the Economic Development Center, to be able to have folks in the neighborhood access jobs. We already have manufacturers who are coming into us and saying, will you help us train people in different industries? It'll also be an entryway for Metro Health employment, so lots of different things.
Okay. And then I know at least one of my colleagues, I'm sure we'll get to this, but the tax credit project that you need this legislation moved quickly on. So could you just explain briefly what that entails as far as?
Yeah, it's the Fact 50 project, and the first thing that needed to happen is that areas needed to apply to the city and be designated the Fact 50 area. Metro Health, Metro West Corporation, and with additional support of other folks in the community, we applied and we were selected as the site of this $3 million Fact 50 investment. Which is the tax credits. We have already presented to them and received very favorable responses from them. They've asked us to come back. We are the only shovel-ready project that we believe in the Clark Fulton neighborhood that's seeking it at this time.
Okay, very good. Mr. Miller?
Mr. Chairman, Director Boutros, are all of the units going to be low-income units, or is there a larger number of units of which the low-income units are a portion?
So if you're looking at the entire development, which is not before you today, there are two additional developments that we are going to be doing that is not on county land, that is on land that is already owned by CCH Development Corporation. That will be workforce housing. So there will be what is known as market rate housing, but on the lower end of market rate.
But this project itself, it's all low-income
It's
housing.
low to moderate income. I think
Yeah.
that is how it is characterized.
And how large are the units going to be?
1 to 2 bedrooms. Greg, do you want to come up and just introduce yourself too?
Good morning. My name is Greg Zuka. I'm the Director of Economic and Community Development for Metro Health. The units will be between, we'll have 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, and 3 bedroom units.
And what's the anticipated rent structure?
What's the anticipated rent structure?
Yes.
Okay.
So rents will be, will fluctuate depending upon the 30 to 80% area median income. So for a family of 4, that would range, their income would range between $23,000 and $53,000 annually. The rents will be structured in such a way that those individuals would be able to qualify for it.
So Mr. Mel, I would say to you, in order to receive the low income tax credit, this has to be worked out with the city, so the income is affordable exactly to their formula. So until we know exactly how much we're receiving, we can give you kind of a general range. If you're in 30%, do you know?
So for that, those ranges will be between $750 per month up to $1,200 per month. Again, depending upon the size of the unit.
And will the rents be subsidized?
The rents are subsidized because of the capital stack. That you don't have to pay higher rates than that. So is it less than it's about $1 or less than $1 sometimes per square foot,
Yes.
right?
So the subsidy is coming through the low-income housing tax credit.
So if you think about it today, the market rate housing is around $2 to $3 per square foot. Okay, that's what it is, and certain places in the city it's much higher and much higher than that. This is going to be around $1 or less per square foot. Our workforce housing is probably going to be at around $1.50, $1.75.
Ms. Baker?
Thank
Ms.
you.
Baker?
So if I'm understanding this correctly, the average family of 4 would pay, did you say about $1,500 a month?
Up to $1,200 for the largest unit.
Up to $1,200.
If they're the highest income of that 30 to 80% and have the largest unit.
Okay, and that, someone making 25, what did you say?
So that would be the lower end, and you'd probably be paying in the 700 range,
Okay.
right?
Thank you. And,
And they could be receiving, support for that from the government, right? So they could be, that's not directly coming from them. They receive it and they provide that.
and this,
Those
of
dollars.
course, is all rent. Nobody's purchasing any units.
No, this is not a purchase. Yeah.
Okay.
The only way this works is if it's a rental. Only way to get the low-income housing credit. That's
Okay.
right.
And the subsidized piece, of course, is the low-income tax credits, but beyond that, is there any subsidies coming outside of that? And is Metro subsidizing any of
Yeah,
this?
so we received from the state capital grant $750,000, which is going into the economic development facility. There may be an additional $500,000 that either us or the developer will put in it in the form of a loan.
Okay, and that's for the capital.
Correct.
What about the ongoing rent?
Ongoing rents, literally on that stage, cover all the cost of the building and the amenities in the building.
And how long do you anticipate that money will last? I mean, that's rent goes on and on.
Yeah, so I think the payback period is
15 years.
15 years.
15 years.
Yeah.
If I may, any thought to transportation needs? We've been talking quite a bit about the needs of
Yeah.
transportation and the lack of funding there and getting people from their homes to work. Could
So-
you impact more people if you were to concentrate more on transportation than housing?
What we've already done significant amount of investment in RTA.
Okay.
That is why you have the Metro Health line, and actually right in front of that building is one of the stops that we recently renovated and put there. So the next step for the RTA is, because of our investment, they're going to the federal government to look for a BRT, which is bus rapid transit, which will increase significantly the speed by which people who are using public transportation get to and from work.
Okay, it's good to know. Thank you.
Follow-up question.
Okay, Mr. Miller has a follow-up.
So, the construction begins when and is completed when?
So construction will begin in 2020 with the goal of a 18-month construction period, so it would be completed in 21.
Okay. And when the 15-year payback period is done, does it then have to shift to market rate housing, or will you be able to maintain it as low income housing indefinitely?
Yeah, our commitment with the developer is that it remains as is. And just so we're clear, even though this is going to be our only, we believe our only entree into low-income housing, or even the other projects into moderate-income housing, we don't expect to be a developer, right? That's not what Metro Health is. It is clear that if we do this and it's successful, that outside organizations, without the help of Metro Health, will continue to build in that neighborhood. If they see the success of this project, they're going to do more of those projects in the neighborhood. The most recent project that was completed was Lorraine and 44th? Or 40?
Yes.
Lorraine and 44th. That's pretty far, low-income housing project was pretty far from us. But there's a significant amount of space in our area to support additional buildings.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Conwell has a few more questions.
Through the chair to Dr. Boutros. Currently in Cleveland, rent goes up every year. That's the market. So what is your plan for these low-income houses? I know it's a 15-year payback, but will the rent increase on an annual basis for the residents?
So again, the rents are tied to area and median income. If area and median income does not go up, if it remains constant, then rents will be tied to that. So if it does go up, there's an opportunity to increase rents marginally, but it's really our ultimate goal to keep it at the level at which it is when it opens.
Yeah, Ms. Conwell, just to be clear, our goal is not to make this a for-profit entity that creates dollars. This is about the health of the community. And if there's an opportunity to increase the rent and utilize some of those dollars to serve more of the community, that will be a decision we'll have to make. But just to make more money, that is not our goal here.
So when the individuals pay their rent, who does that go to? Will that
It'll go to the management company,
Okay.
which we have not yet selected. So we know who the developer is, but we don't know who the management company will be.
And the only reason I know you're not in it to get rich, but the only reason I'm saying is because you mentioned the social determinants
Yeah.
that would actually put that would pick the individuals that would live in these housing units, and I still think it's a tad bit. I know the market around here is about $700 for rent, but it's a little high for the individuals that I would assume that you're trying to put in there.
Yeah, there will be, most of these individuals are receiving support of that amount to pay the rent. So the people at the 20% or 30% are actually receiving support from somewhere else to pay
We're
that
trying to
rent.
move away from that, though.
I understand, but there's a federal program that they're going to be receiving the dollars from to do that.
All right,
I
thank
will
you.
tell you, very few people are doing 30% of the median income. Most folks are in the 50 to 80% range. We moved as low as we could to make it work.
But you know, I'm looking at the homeless, I'm looking at the seniors.
That's a different.
There's a lot of individuals out there
That's
that
a
can't
different
afford this.
project. I'm happy when we're ready. I'm happy to come talk to you about it.
All right, all right.
Chair.
Ms. Baker has another question. Ms. Baker.
I understand about your mission in trying to provide for low-income housing. And I know we're not talking about this today, but why is it that you want to expand into the employee building? What is it that you feel is needed for employees that are working and being paid and coming to work and providing wherever it is that, why do we need to, why is your vision beyond the low-income housing?
So to be clear, I'm happy to answer the question, Ms. Baker, but to be clear, we're not going to be coming to council for anything on these,
Any of that?
on any of that, but I'm happy to answer your question anyway.
Okay.
About 12 years ago in New York, I built employee housing for residents, interns, nurses, pharmacists, and the like across the street from, actually 3 blocks away from the health system that I ran. And a couple of things happens as a result of that. People are more apt to stay at work and do their job and not have the constraints of travel or all of those things. So they just become much more committed to the environment. The second thing that happens is that they become really good members of the community. Right now, we have about 5,000 individuals who are transients. Every day they come to work and they leave. This is not their home. This is not their community.
Right.
That's a lot of people who are moving in and out who don't live there, and that's what we need to do. Lastly, during Hurricane Sandy, it was the only hospital on Long Island that did not have any shortage of employees. We all had them across the street, and they came and they rested a couple of hours and they came back. So in case of emergency, just so you understand, about 110 of these apartments will be for medical residents. So in case of emergency, you and I and everyone else will be unbelievably grateful they're across the street, that they can come in immediately and provide emergency support. So there's a lot of reasons for it, but that's one of the main reasons. It's worked for me before. I've done it twice in other health systems, and happy to do it here again.
The only reason I ask, because, we are partners with you, of course,
Yes.
and help subsidize your efforts, which we appreciate. But will this housing be subsidized for employees? Will money from Metro
Yeah.
find its way there?
So none of the county support, and I'll repeat it as often as it needs to be. None of the county dollars go for anything except uninsured patients' direct care, and we or uncompensated care, and we exhaust the $32 million within 3 months of our operations.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
and I appreciate the work that you do, and certainly I'm glad that you're.
And it's
helping
only
those
for
in need.
Cuyahoga County residents, right? So we exclude everybody else. We exclude all administrative salaries, everything from it. It's just literally just the direct cost of providing the services.
All right. The parking, you're using parking, so where, did you say there were 300 parking slots?
No, we have an excess of 300 parking spots in the new parking garage. We built 1,200 parking garage deck. We're using 900 of it today.
Okay.
So there's about 100 parking spots. They'll just get absorbed in the new deck.
For the people that are living, if they have a car, for those.
Oh,
that are
the people who are living there, we're going to have their own parking on the property, but our employees who currently park there are going to park in our parking
Got
deck.
it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Baker, and we have Mr. Schron and then Ms. Simon joined us this morning as well.
Just shortly a comment, the idea of having workforce close to their working environment, I think it's a philosophy at other medical institutions too, so you're not unique to be doing that. I think if you look around the Cleveland Clinic and UH, you can see the housing stock. Now, whether or not it's funded by the clinic or funded by UH, it is available in a lot of medical facilities because of that same quick response that's beneficial to, I think, the employment. Just a comment.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Schron, and Ms. Simon.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say thank you for your vision and bringing your vision here. And I know that this is going to make a huge difference when you just collaborate with the whole neighborhood and lift it up. And the subsidy that the county as a partner provides, I believe, is even insufficient to accomplish really what our mission is. Integral to the county mission is health and human service. And without your partnership, we couldn't do what we do. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate that and have no problem with how the county dollars are being used and trust that that's going to advance the mission. But I know that it's earmarked for a particular purpose. But just wanted to say I appreciate what you're doing, and it's huge to be able to uplift a whole neighborhood, and this will impact the entire county.
I'll tell you, it is the reason I'm here in Cleveland is to do precisely what Metro Health's mission is. And if that wasn't the case, I honestly would not be here. So this fulfills my life's goals as well, is to be able to do what we need for the many people who are left behind in so many of our neighborhoods and cities, and we want to be able to fulfill, do our part. So thank you very much for your support and for the entire council support. Sincerely appreciate it.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, so you're looking to move this along so you can be part of that tax credit with the city of Cleveland.
Yes.
So I have no issue making a motion for second reading suspension on this. If I could have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All those in favor of second reading suspension for R 2019-0156, and that is the substituted version there. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and opposed nay, and the ayes have it. Thank you very much. Okay, Madam Clerk, if we could have the next resolution, we'll go back to our regularly scheduled order.
Resolution number 2019-0149, authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 170002 with Mott McDonald for design engineering services for repair and resurfacing of Sprague Road from Webster Road to York Road in the cities of Middleburg Heights, North Royalton, Parma, and Strongsville.
Okay, and if you could state your name for the record?
Nicole English with Public Works. So we're asking for an amendment to a design contract related to Sprague Road widening. This is going from 2 to 3 lanes. When they were selected, this was always intended to be 2 parts. The first part was actually sold and will begin shortly, and that's Webster to 130th. And then the second part, we need this contract amendment in order to design, and then we would sell that late next year for construction following part 1. So I think we've heard about this for a while because we've been presenting different items and right away, and the project has been going on for a good amount of time. They were initially selected based on an RFQ process in June of 2016 and contracted for part 1, and so this is just part 2 coming forward. And the total contract is $2,845,000. This is $700,000 of it, and part 1 did a lot of pre-work on the whole corridor, right? So they had to survey everything. They did base mapping on the whole corridor. So this is now just doing final design on the second phase, which is why it's significantly lower than the part 1.
Okay. Any questions from my colleagues? I know we've had items from this project through here before. So, and what are we looking for as far as a time frame here?
Second reading suspension would help just to get them going.
Okay. And when is this project supposed to be completed?
So part 1's under construction right now, and there's some utility relocation issues, which is why it's starting later. So our intent is to start part 2 after. The design would start now. We would sell the project in 2020, late 2020, and for construction in 21.
Okay. I'll make a reading for second reading suspension on this. Could I have a second? Second. Okay, I have a second for second reading suspension on R 2019-0149. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay, and the ayes have it. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, if you could read the next resolution.
Resolution number 2019-0150, authorizing an amendment to contract number CE 1400135 with Alto 55 Erie View for lease of space located at 75 Erie View Plaza for operation of the Family Justice Center.
Okay, and if you could state your name for the record and explain this resolution, please.
Sure. Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. John Myers on behalf of the Department of Public Works. We're here today to seek an amendment to our current lease for the county's Family Justice Center located at 75 Erie View Plaza, which is operated by our Department of Justice Affairs. We're nearing the end of a 5-year lease term, which is up in November of this year, and we're here seeking a 4-year amendment in the amount of $780,360. This is a 13,500 square foot office that operates for our witness victim and domestic victims of domestic violence, sexual assault, stalking, and related crimes, and in partnership with the City of Cleveland.
Okay, and so that you're looking for a 4-year extension?
Correct.
And the lease ends at the end of this year, current?
In November, yes.
November, okay. Any questions or comments on this, Mr. Miller?
So, how does the rate proposed for the next 4 years compare with the rate that we're currently paying?
Mr. Chair, to Councilman Miller, it's approximately a 3 to 4% increase each year. This is a full-service lease, so it's covering, other costs that the landlord bears as cleaning and other services related to facilitating the department's programs there.
And what is the cost per square foot?
It will be, in this first year of the lease, $12.50 per square foot, and then increases through the next 3 years, approximately 50 cents per square foot.
Mm-hmm. And given that the lease does not expire until 10/31/2019, would it be safe to assume that this could go for 3 readings?
Mr. Chairman and Councilman Miller, yes, I appreciate your asking because sometimes we're under the gun, but I think we have sufficient time here for it to go for standard 3 readings.
Even for 3 readings, we can still get it passed before the summer recess in early August.
That would be great.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Baker? What's your name?
Is this, was this built into the contract for an option to renew, or is this a new contract?
This is, no, this is an amendment to the current existing, we had a 5-year lease that we entered into, and this is just amending the current lease that's in place for this additional time and funds.
I guess what I'm asking is the Family Justice Center that's occupying, did they have in their original lease that it would be first 5 years with an option to renew for another 5 years and an option to renew?
The option was not defined in the base lease.
Is this tenant concerned at all about their lease coming up? Have you talked to them to extend it, and have all those conversations taken place?
Yes, and we have representatives from Justice Affairs who represent the Family Justice Center and operate that. There was a related piece that came before your committee yesterday about the programming funds of it that's talked more specifically. But
Right.
yes, as in all of our cases, we're working, Public Works is working on behalf of these agencies to meet their needs with their direction to help them, carry out their mission.
And what you're presenting here today to extend this lease fits, they're in cooperation and an agreement?
Yes, all indications the site has worked and they wish to stay there for this additional period of time, with a few tweaks meeting all their needs.
All right. No renovations needed? No ask of money put into the,
No, Mr. Chairman, to Councilwoman Baker, there's no significant investment that is being done in our suite. There are new owners of the building for 75 Erie View Plaza and are investing millions of dollars in the building on mechanical systems and a new lobby and things like that, which the county and the clients of the Family Justice Center will benefit from.
Okay.
And there's some minor, carpeting replacement and cleaning and paint retouching and issues like that that would be normal at this time to keep the spot fresh and working for the agency.
okay, nothing, okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Ms. Conwell?
Through the chair to Mr. Myers, I see this project as 100% funded by a revenue generating agreement with City of Cleveland, so they're paying the costs for the lease?
Yes, I would like to represent that if our colleagues from Justice Affairs can speak more fully to your question, but this is a partnership with the City of Cleveland, and it's my understanding they're providing the funds.
I just need to get clear what we're doing today, what the county's doing and what City of Cleveland's doing.
Okay, yeah, if you could just state your name for the record.
Alex Pelham, Director of Public Safety and Justice Services. What today is the physical lease itself, and yesterday what we spoke on was the revenue generating. So it was broken up a little bit into two pieces. Yesterday was how we're getting the money and how that's 100% funded, and today's the actual agreement to have the space.
Okay,
I hope that makes a little more sense.
a little bit.
So the county's looking at the physicality, the actual building space itself, whereas
Yes, sir.
the program itself is funded through the funding you were talking about
Yes,
yesterday.
okay, I understand where you're going now. Let me back up. So through the chair to the councilwoman, the program services themselves with the people in the seats are funded out of Department of Public Safety and Justice Services Fund. The funding that came yesterday is funding for the space specifically. That's the agreement between the City of Cleveland. They provide funding for the space and the utilities, and we as the county provide bodies and the physical human services to go along with that to supplement the physical infrastructure.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, that helps. Okay, and add my name, thank you.
Okay, we'll add Ms. Conwell's name to that. Any other questions? Mr. Miller, before you guys go away, I don't know if Mr. Miller has something for you.
Is there any reason why we're doing 4 years and not 5 years?
Okay, Mr. Myers?
Yes, Mr. Chair, to the Councilman Miller, I believe this is programmatically tied with our relationship with the city. My understanding is that there's projecting out 4 years of funding available, so we didn't want to go beyond what there was some sense of certainty for this lease arrangement.
And I was not totally clear on the answer to Ms. Conwell's question. Can you explain in this Family Justice Center operation, what does the county pay for and what does the city pay for?
Through the chair to the councilman, my name is Jill Smilek, and I manage Cuyahoga County's Family Justice Center, as well as the Witness Victim Service Center. So I think to provide a fully detailed answer, you would have to go all the way back to approximately 2009, which is when planning for the Family Justice Center began. At that point, it was always conceived of as a partnership between the city and the county, and the city and the county wanted to be full partners in operating the Family Justice Center. So as we got closer to actually implementing the plan, the city of Cleveland dedicated what was at the time approximately $175,000 annually, and Cuyahoga County matched that investment. The city wanted to pay for the lease, but they did not want to actually be the administrator of the lease because the majority of the occupancy is Cuyahoga County employees. So they provided a revenue generating agreement to us, which is what was heard before the Public Safety Committee yesterday, in order to provide us the funding to enter into the lease. So they provide all of that funding, and then from there, Cuyahoga County invests an additional amount of money, which is authorized in the biennial budget, and we provide a majority of the staffing at the center.
So, in summary, the city pays for all of the cost for the space, and the cost for the staffing is split with the county paying for the larger share.
Through the chair to the councilman, the city does not pay for any staff members at the Family Justice Center.
So we pay for all the staffing and the city pays for the space.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Everybody understand that now? Okay. Okay. Any other questions from committee members? Ms. Simon? Oh,
Just to Ms. Smilek, do you house the Safe and Sound at this building, or is that totally separate? Domestic, Safe and Sound Supervised Visit, is that in this building?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, the Safe and Sound Visitation Center is operated by the Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center. They provide supervised visitation and safe exchange for families who are dealing with domestic violence issues. Their facility is actually off-site at 28th and Payne.
Okay.
So they are not on site with us, no. But we do have an individual from the Domestic Violence and Child Advocacy Center who works at our center on a weekly basis. So we still have that strong partnership, but the actual program which you're describing is off-site.
Is there any room to have such a place operate in this site that you have to just consolidate resources? I'm just throwing that out there, but you don't need to answer me now.
Sure. Well, through the chair to the councilwoman, we're always open to opportunities. I think that would be a good conversation with the Domestic Relations Court in particular, as well as Juvenile Court. So we're certainly open to that. The other thing I wanted to just put on your radar is that there are one of the other reasons why there is a 4-year commitment at this point, aside from the funding, and that's what our agreement was with the City of Cleveland, is that we are looking at different programmatic expansions and different ways that we can work with different community initiatives that are going on in order to fully complement what we have going on and make sure that we have the right size facility for the programs that we're providing for the community.
Just a quick follow-up, if I can, Mr. Chair, that there's such a demand for the supervised visits now. I think that would be a place maybe to look at. I mean, there's just not enough time and resources.
Absolutely, yeah.
okay. Thank you, Ms. Simon. With that, I'll make a motion for second reading because we can do the full 3 readings on this. So we have a motion and a second for second reading. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. Thank you, folks. Madam Clerk, if you could read the next resolution, please.
Yes, and Mr. Chair, who made the second?
Mr. Schron.
Thank you.
I think we're on item D, I believe.
Resolution number 2019-0157, approving right-of-way exhibits as set forth in plat number M-5039 for replacement of Lindbergh Boulevard culvert number C-00.93 over a creek to the west branch of the Rocky River in the city of Olmsted Falls.
Okay, and if you could state your name for the record.
Nicole English with Public Works. So we're seeking authority to acquire right-of-way for a culvert that's in Olmsted Falls. It's estimated that the right-of-way payments to owners is around $8,000. There's 4 owners, essentially the 4 corners around the culvert. And this project is one that's identified through our culvert program where we split the costs with the cities. They pay for 40% of the design, we pay for 60%, we pay for 80% of the construction, and they pay for 20% of the construction. So this is part of that program where we typically are doing about 2 culverts a year.
Okay, and I'm sorry, could you just state that breakdown? I was trying to write it down.
Oh,
Breakdown.
sorry.
That's okay.
Design costs are 60-40, so 60 county, 40 city, and then construction costs are 80% county, 20% city. And so that's one of our programs. When I know most of you, we've sent out that PowerPoint presentation. One of them is local culvert programs, and that's what this falls into.
Okay, and how much were they getting paid for the right-of-way there?
The estimate is $8,000 total
Total, okay.
for the 4
Okay.
owners.
Any questions on this? Mr. Miller?
Is this an arrangement where we negotiate with the owners and try to reach an agreement and hopefully it's amicable, but if not, then we would have to move toward eminent domain, but hopefully that isn't necessary. Is that-
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
okay.
Typically on these culverts, we're taking a very small amount temporary just to get in and have access. We might be cutting down a tree or two. That's what we're paying them for on their property in order to get equipment in. So most of these tiny projects you don't see go to appropriation. We normally can reach resolution.
Okay. Any other questions? And what's the time frame on this? So how's this situation playing out?
We'd like to finish acquisition by the end of this year so we can construct in the spring. So the quicker the better, just to get our agents, started.
But we have plenty of time to do this under 3 readings, correct? Or, I mean, I know you said the quicker the better, but by the end of the year is quite, it's.
Yeah, it takes us a little while. I mean, second reading would help give us 2 weeks, but if you want to go 3, that's fine too. So we can take 3.
We'll do second reading suspension. I'm always okay about that.
It just gives them some extra time. You never know with some of the owners, you got to go meet with them and talk, and
That was
it's
like
just
a
any time we
Dale
can give
Carnegie
them.
thing you just did to me. If you want to, that's okay. No.
I want you to
Okay,
feel
no.
empowered to make the decision.
Yeah, empowered. Yeah, I feel so empowered after yesterday. Okay, so second reading suspension. I'll make a motion for second reading suspension.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for second reading suspension. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Thank you. And Madam Clerk, if you could read the last resolution?
Ordinance number 2019-0010.
Ordinance.
Enacting section 806.04 of the Cuyahoga County Code to establish the Cuyahoga County Energy Participation Program.
Okay, and if you could state your name for the record?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Matt Reimer with the Department of Public Works. Mr. Chair, and committee members, so with your indulgence, I'll have a short presentation, and then which you should have hard copies on at your workstations there, and then we'll be happy to answer questions. So this proposed ordinance, at its core, will establish a public works program under Chapter 804 of the County Code to purchase electricity and natural gas for various county facilities. So we're going to propose this ordinance to establish a county energy participation program for the purchase of electricity and natural gas, potentially for solar services for various county facilities. We're proposing this program to continue a longstanding program that we've had with the County Commissioners Association of Ohio, and to efficiently purchase electricity and natural gas through those programs that are administered by their service corporation. And this will also formalize the energy participation program to be efficient and repeatable and auditable for all of our future energy purchases coming up. You may have had various experiences in the past with these purchases. They have been under different purchasing agreements in the past. They have come up at different times, and different methods have been used to present them. So this will add formality to those purchases. As background, the County Commissioners Association of Ohio, through its affiliate, the Service Corporation, was created to develop or sponsor services on behalf of county government and local other political subdivisions for 4 major goals: to save money, to offer better services to those counties, and to improve job satisfaction and hire and retention of county employees through some of their other programs that they do. We're most concerned with the Service Corporation's established energy purchasing program to assist eligible Ohio counties to compete in a very complex and volatile marketplace for good energy supplies at good competitive rates and terms. We being Cuyahoga County, have participated in the CCO energy purchasing program since their inception in the late 90s. So we've been a longstanding participant in these programs for both natural gas and electricity. Currently, as background, there are over 60 Ohio counties that are participating in the 2 major energy programs with CCAO. The benefits of the program participation are, as you can imagine, the pooling of loads across multiple political subdivisions, the ability to achieve buying power through more competitive rates and terms through combining that load with other counties when those solicitations go out. As mentioned, another benefit to this program are having the expertise in the energy market. We in the County Department of Public Works do not have that technical expertise, so relying on those that can navigate the complex and volatile markets for energy are extremely helpful. And then third, we're very much assured of being compliant with Ohio Revised Code through participation in this agreement and through these actual purchases via the Service Corporation. And this program then also sets formality that allows us to be compliant with county code, is why we're proposing it in this way. As context, I've offered a small table below that shows over those periods of time the estimated savings that our past participation in these programs have gained. These estimated savings are supplied to us by the Service Corporation Manager, a representative here. We can go into any questions with them. Mr. Kirk Mazurek, who's appeared before Council before on behalf of Palmer Energy. These savings are estimated against the rates that we were contracted versus the commercially available rates during those times to other commercial users.
Ms. Conwell has a quick question.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Through the chair to that chart right there, did we actually, because that's 2015 to 2018, did the county actually have those savings that is listed in that chart?
So the estimated savings are against what rates would have been available commercially.
If we had had the program.
Correct. If we had not contracted through the program as we had, so those rates are defined. What we contracted was defined. What isn't defined is what we would have gotten had we gone out on a different mechanism or commercial, or just going through the utility on their standard offers that would have been available during that time. So that part is the estimated portion of the equation.
That's estimated savings.
Estimated, yes.
Mr. Chairman?
So, before Mr. Miller goes, so I just want to clarify what you said, maybe I misunderstood. So through going through the program, those are the estimated savings, but you're saying what we don't know is, had we not gone through the program, what our costs would have been. Is that what you're saying? Or I'm just trying to figure out.
We can't say with certainty. We know through the analysis that the Service Corporation Manager has done that they are able to identify what those rates could have been.
Because they fluctuate, is that the
Correct,
reason?
and those
Okay.
offers change, and we don't know how, if we would have gone out on our own, what they would have been, but.
Okay, it looks like you have some help coming up here, so that's okay.
Lifeline, thanks, Kurt.
Hi, I'm Kirk Mazurek. I'm representing the County Commissioners Association. Let's just use the electric savings of 1.147 million. During that time, if you did nothing and stayed with utility costs, you would have spent 1.147 million more on your electricity purchases for that time. But through the RFP and procurement process, we are able to get you lower rates over that time to give you those savings. Just a specific answer on that.
Okay.
So we did get these savings.
Oh, you absolutely did get those
Well,
savings.
yeah, that's what I was trying to gauge. Okay.
You absolutely did. You participated in the electricity program.
Right.
For quite
Right,
a while,
okay.
as well as natural.
Understood. Okay, Mr. Miller?
So, for how long has Cuyahoga County been participating in this program?
Since its inception, which we speculated was in the late 90s.
So, is there a contract for a term of years that's now up for renewal? Is that why we're here?
Through the chair to Councilman Miller, yes, not on electricity. You, as council members, saw the electricity contract last May of 2018. What is upcoming here in the fall is the natural gas contract. In addition to that, our participation agreement, which is a separate action with the CCAO, is up for renewal. So that is one of the reasons why we're here to establish this program through ordinance. The participation agreement would follow. We anticipate that that would be through the Board of Control. And then as a result of those executions, then the CCAO would be free to do the RFP process. In particular, for our natural gas selection would be first. We wouldn't be doing electricity until 2021.
So, is it a correct summary that in the past that we have not had an energy participation agreement with CCAO, but we have been working with them and we want to create a more formalized agreement at this time?
We have had a participation agreement. The most recent one was executed in 2014. But there's a different structure to the participation agreement now, which led to our development of this ordinance and proposed legislation here today.
So is CCAO an aggregator?
No, they are not. The suppliers are acting as an aggregator in this case. for you when they go through that. But the CCO themselves are not considered an actual aggregator.
So, what's the difference between what you do and what somebody like NOPEC does? And could NOPEC be an alternative way that we could handle this?
Well, I can't sit here and comment on how NOPEC would handle this. I can tell you that everything that the CCAO does is through the RFP process. So it's going out there on the active market, soliciting, an RFP to get the best possible numbers, best possible agreements. I don't know what NOPEC does. I can't comment on specifically what they do on that. But through this project process, you are following the ORC, which is obviously why so many counties participate in the activity.
Okay. Mr. Schron?
Are we one of the largest in the CCAO as far as energy users for both the natural gas and electricity in the state?
Sure, yes. So all the major, I'd say not major, but the 5 largest counties do participate in this program. You are one of the 5 largest counties that participate, so yes.
Okay, and what we're comparing on this savings, are we comparing really the rack rate to analogize it to a hotel versus what you actually pay? When you're saying these are the savings estimates, are we comparing it to what you would buy if you were buying it off the street? Is that what we're comparing these savings to?
Just using that electricity again, that is the actual utility rate that's posted. What you would otherwise be paying if you did nothing, that's what you would have paid in this case.
Okay, but realistically, there aren't a whole lot of people that pay that rate. Everybody's got negotiating things through one form or another. Would that be a correct statement of all the other 5 major counties?
I would say yes, but they choose to do it through this project so they can follow the ORC because this project, process follows ORC to a specific T so that we can do this for you.
And
There's a lot of policy that has to go through that.
Does CCAO receive any compensation for this?
Yeah, absolutely, yes.
And what are you receiving off of this that we are not seeing in part? Obviously, that's not part of our savings. It's going to you folks. So what's the compensation structure look like that you guys are?
Through the chair to Councilman Tron, the rates are defined in the participation agreement, and those percentages or those rates against our consumption, our county facilities consumption, are estimated at $18,000 a piece on the natural gas agreement and on the electricity agreement. So $36,000 total would be the estimated annual fees that go through the supplier billing back to CCAO and the Service Corporation.
Those are annual, or is that for the life of it? Okay, so
Those are
that's
annual.
annual. So that comes off, and realistically, our net number is $36,000 less than these
No,
numbers?
actually, this number includes the participation fees as well.
Okay, so this is the net number. This is not a gross number. So you've already taken our fee basis out of this?
Absolutely.
Okay, and do we have are you negotiating on the behalf of both, because the county has properties that could be using CPP and some that could be using CEI. Is that factored in, because it's kind of a rarity that of the other counties that we would have this ability? Are you negotiating on behalf of having 2 different power sources right in outside of our buildings?
Through the chair to Councilman Tron, the short answer is no, sir. The purchase agreement with CPP is a separate transaction, and our participation with the CCO program, the county and specifically Public Works would define the facilities that would be included in their solicitation and request for proposal. So those are deconflicted, and they would not provide us service relative to the purchase agreement with CPP.
And their fee is a variable fee, or is it a fixed fee?
It is fixed in the participation agreement based on consumption. It's
Okay,
a
so
certain
it's
unit-
variable
unit
based on the
price.
amount of consumption then? It's
No,
not a fixed
absolutely
dollar
not.
amount, right?
No, absolutely not. It is per kilowatt hour across the board, whether you use 1 kilowatt per year or
Yeah.
50 million kilowatts.
So it varies based on the amount of consumption, right? It's not a fixed fee that you just told us about as far as the $18,000.
It's on consumption, correct.
Yeah, okay. And does any of this factor in the icebreaker project and the higher rates that are allocated to the cost of consumption of electricity that's been built into that agreement?
Through the chair to Councilman Schron, no, not this agreement, but it is part of the separate contract that the county has with CPP.
Right, but it's not, so there's nothing going on with the CCAO and the icebreaker and the cost of that.
That is correct.
consumption.
There's nothing attributable here to that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Schroeder, and Ms. Baker has a question.
Just for clarification, we have been working with CCAO since 2014? Is that?
That was the latest participation agreement, Councilwoman, so the relationship extends before that.
Okay.
I can't speak to the individual agreements that were executed before that time, but the most current one was originally executed in 2014.
So if we were able to work with them at 2014 or before that, what is the purpose? I may not have caught. What is the purpose of now creating or establishing a county energy participation program? What benefits will we have beyond what we've saved here over the past several years that we will now have because we are an official? And I think it says here, participation program in order to create and adopt comprehensive guidelines for the funding, management, and administration of CCAO's joint energy purchasing program. So how is that different than what we've already been doing?
Great question. Through the chair to Councilwoman Baker, if you indulge me just for a minute, I'm about ready to hit that on my slides and be happy to go through that if that's
Sure.
okay. And I'll
Can
make
do
sure
that?
to hit that topic. Okay. So attributes of the participation program is that what we're trying to establish is a 5-year program that matches the current participation agreement duration that we would execute with the CCAO. It identifies the Department of Public Works, specifically the director, as the administrator of the program on behalf of the county, and then it allows the CCO manager to perform the selection through the RFP process, evaluation and engagement with the Director of Public Works.
I think you're a slide behind.
I am. My apologies, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
It would also then allow the CCAO Service Corporation manager, who is Palmer Energy, they would then be allowed to prepare and execute the RFP and then advise and then ultimately perform the selection and execute the contracts for the natural gas and electricity on behalf of the county. And I'll get to those specifics of why it's different here. So the program then seeks to authorize the Director of Public Works to review the results, both going into an RFP process, the results of the RFP process, and then review those results with the CCAO Service Corporation manager to be able to then execute the purchase agreements and the transactions on behalf of the county. So the context here, you may remember from May of last year, we had an RFP process executed through the CCAO for our electricity contract. The electricity market is pretty volatile, and so they must then set a refresh date for when those rates have to be refreshed, and then a contract executed by the end of that business day in order to lock in those rates. So I think you saw us, rush an item before the actual agenda proceeded, and then there was a vote, and then everyone ran to a back room and executed the contract before the end of the business day. So the increasing complexity of those markets and the changing of the participation agreement with CCAO have led us to this point, because they can no longer be in that scenario where they can't execute on behalf of the county. So the program will contain a limited power of attorney through the participation agreement for them to execute these contracts. And then, in addition, all the transactions that happen through the life of the contract to be able to manage the rates and the different things that happen with these. It also allows, lost my train of thought there for a second, forgive me. So what we have built into the ordinance, though, is through some interaction, is the requirement that we present to this committee within 60 days of any executed agreement or transaction that the CCO has done on behalf of the county. I'm sorry, the train of thought that I lost was these contracts can also then be, to the benefit of the members, including us as a member, dual or multi-party contracts. So the complexity of having a multi-party contract on one of these solicitations and then having to seek on a single day approval by multiple parties, and those respective county governments would be too complex. So the new participation agreement must include a limited power of attorney. It was that action that drove us to work with the law department and propose this ordinance as a way forward to that end. Just some other minor notes, and then I'll be happy to take any more of your questions. The next actions that we would be planning here for the county through this program, if approved, would be executing our participation agreement. For the energy purchasing programs, we would anticipate executing of the 5 offered, 3 would be offered. It would be the natural gas purchase agreement, the electricity purchase agreement, and although we don't have any projects identified, a solar facilities agreement as well. The 2 other agreements are aggregation agreements that are intended for other county residents or of unincorporated areas or light commercial areas, which are not applicable to us at this point in time. The participation does allow us to be part of the board of participants. We've been actively involved in that through the department, through the history of our participation with CCO. We also get monthly and annual program reports from the CCO, and we have the ability under the agreement to audit our county records and transactions at any time. And as mentioned in response to Councilman Schron's question, this does not come into conflict with the current energy purchase agreement with CPP. Happy to answer any of your questions.
Okay, Ms. Conwell has a question.
To the chair, to Mr. Reimer, going back to the authorizes the Director of Public Works to review the proposals. Who will be responsible in the Public Works Department to make sure that they're monitoring the CCAO manager?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Conwell, by name in the ordinance, it is the Director of Public Works. By practice, that will be my advice and through use of my energy manager and employee under my chain of command. We would be participating and advising the director in that capacity.
Okay, and how often do you expect that you would have to monitor these proposals? How?
Relatively infrequently, as far as the purchase of contracts. As mentioned, that would be through the 4th quarter of this year. We have to purchase natural gas, and that would be probably for at least a 2-year duration of contract. And then in 2021, electricity. So relatively infrequently.
Could you give the council a chart of when you would have to look at those proposals? I mean, you guys have done an excellent job. I haven't had any problems with Public Works. And then the bottom bullet point on that same page, a little concerned about the limited power of attorney. Are they allowed to just lock in the rates? What all are they doing for the county?
Sure. Through the chair to Councilwoman Conwell, I think the best way I can answer that is through an example. So leading up to a known purchase, let's use the purchase of electricity in this case, we would be working with CCAO on development of the RFP. We, Public Works, would be communicating the goals of the purchase, what facilities we want included, what meter accounts we want included, and then we would work on the strategies for the terms and conditions that we'd like to see in an RFP. CCO would draft that RFP, they would go to competition for it, and they would receive the results of that competition. At that point, they would set a refresh date into the future as to when they would have to lock in the terms. But in the meantime, we, Public Works, would be reviewing with CCAO the responses, the terms and conditions that came back with those RFP responses, everything except for the ultimate rate that has to happen on that future refresh date. So we would be engaged before and after the RFP and evaluation. We'd have to concur with what CCAO is doing and their recommendations. And then it's only the unknown of the rate structure, and if we're going to establish anything with multi-party to get a better rate structure into the future, that they would be doing on our behalf.
So you stated earlier that the reason for this ordinance is because we're not in the business of knowing energy cost and whatever. So how do we know that we're really producing those savings?
So we will have rates coming back with any RFP. It's just knowing how those rates will fluctuate between when we get the results to when the refresh date is set. That's the unknown, and the responsiveness that needs to be built in, which is the responsiveness that they're asking for in the limited power of attorney of these agreements. At that point, we will know then, we can establish then what those savings would be relative to our past contracts or relative to standard offers that we are seeing or relative to the other respondents of that RFP. So we can estimate those savings at that time.
Last question, and I think you've answered it a couple times with Miller and Baker, but if we've been participating in this already, why are we creating an ordinance for this?
For the exact question that you had related to the limited power of attorney, we have not had that dynamic in the past. We have been before you in my terms, a rushed sense to pass something before the end of the business day, and that's not a context that CCO can operate under anymore.
Also, I'll get to Mr. Schrein in a second. Well, also, isn't it, I mean, it's my understanding that other counties do the power of attorney as well. So this is not Cuyahoga County just going on a limb here.
Mr. Chair, you are correct. They do, and they have given us the examples of those powers of attorneys. I think it is something that is, I'll look to Kirk, I think it's relatively unique to our form of government that we want to make sure that we're doing things per our code, and that's the result of this ordinance, is want to make sure we're, one, in compliance with ORC and these purchases, and that's what this program will offer us, but also in compliance with our code, and that's why we seek this program.
Right. To answer your question specifically, all 65 plus other counties have signed these agreements with the power of attorneys, and it has gone through. Correct.
Okay, makes perfect sense. Okay, Mr. Schrein.
To my colleagues' questions, Ms. Conwell's, we have the skills to look at this and analyze this internally within the county?
Through the chair to Mr. Schrein, yes, with the advice of the market experts that we'd be gaining through this participation agreement, we absolutely do.
Without that, we don't have the knowledge?
I would say no, sir.
So then how do we know we're getting a good deal if we don't have the knowledge? You're relying on them to give you the knowledge that you're telling us you don't have. You either have it or we don't have the knowledge.
We have a basis. We have our historical basis. We have our historical consumption. So we can base off of history what we've been able to achieve in the marketplace. Where that marketplace is going, where that marketplace, where the forecasting may be, that's where we need the market expertise, sir.
Okay, and so we have the ability to understand what we spent in the past. We have the ability to understand what we paid and where it's gone from that standpoint. Obviously, we even have the ability to run the risk of making decisions about solar fields and wind turbines and things like that as far as the county participation. But we don't have the ability to save $36,000 and make your own negotiations going forward?
Through the chair to Councilman Schrein, I can just say that certainly with my short history with the county and my understanding of our other history of the county, we have not solicited these services in this market dynamic previously. Since deregulation, this is not a marketplace that we have played in from a county soliciting these services, short of going straight to utility offers and paying those standard prices that the utilities offer, being First Energy or.
You have to pay the standard fees. I'm asking you for them to give us the same rates to which we have been paying for the last 5 years and save $36,000 for the county.
I can just say I would recommend against that, Councilman. Yeah. Okay.
One thing I also like to add to that is the group purchasing power of this kind of agreement. Yes, you're one of the larger counties in it, but you're only, approximately 18 million kilowatt hours a year of usage versus over 400 million kilowatt hour a year usage in the overall CCO program. So it's a group buying program as well. You're also getting substantial savings in that, plus our expertise in the actual agreements that are with the suppliers and everything, weeding out the stuff that protects Cuyahoga County. It's very important to keep that stuff in to protect Cuyahoga County.
You're telling me that this county could not get the rates if we went directly to CPP, CEI, and for our gas purchases if we negotiated on our own. You're telling me we would not be capable of doing that?
Well, CEI doesn't provide the third-party service here. They'd have to go through First Energy Solutions, which
Right.
would be, yeah, but you'd have to put on an RFP process to follow the ORC or whatever.
Sure,
all
I
that
get it.
kind of stuff is, yeah.
Yeah, and we
But
couldn't.
I don't think you would get as good of rates. No, absolutely not. This is a group purchasing program. You're part of that group, and it does help you when it's such a larger group out there to get you better rates out in the market.
Okay, and then what is a solar agreement? I've never, I mean, you either buy electric power or you're buying heated water that gets thermally transferred. What is it we're buying? What is a solar agreement?
Through the chair to Councilman Tron, I'll do my best, and then I'll ask Kirk to correct me if I'm wrong. But the solar agreement that would be proposed is for consideration of future solar projects should we desire to have the consulting services to help develop future solar projects, of which we have, through this agreement, we have none envisioned at this point in time.
Correct. So what we do with the CCAO program is we analyze your facility, see which facilities make sense for you to perhaps participate in a solar agreement. At that point, we can actually then RFP out that work to the various solar developers in order to bring solar to the county from that perspective.
So does that bear any relationship to the solar agreement we currently have in place with CPP?
To the councilman, no. Department of Sustainability has obviously their focus of how they wish to achieve those services. This is, I would describe it as another menu option if we chose to seek those services in the future.
Okay, and so in the solar panels that we're talking about putting on county buildings, does that relate to this either?
It does not, Councilman.
Okay, so it's, I guess I was trying to figure out, what are we getting if that's in here? It doesn't sound like it's something that we don't already have expertise in, sounds like, from that standpoint. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sharon. Ms. Baker?
Just a point of clarification, we're paying right now about $36,000 a year for the services that we previously. So for the added services that we are now going to be receiving, that you've stated, is there going to be additional charges?
To Councilwoman Baker, no. Those are that estimate is taking our consumption that we had in 2018 and multiplying it times the rates that are in the proposed participation agreement. So that would be, the 36,000 is what we're forecasting to have as part of this program.
So no administrative additional services for the limited power of attorney, no additional charges for any reporting that we're not maybe getting now. It's hard to see whether we're getting it now or not. Any of that, any of the additional benefits by creating this participation program, is there any additional admin charges onto what we're paying?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Baker, no, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Miller, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman, so going forward, will we continue to see the energy contracts as legislation except for the final pricing on the refresh date before the contracts are executed, or will we only see it after the fact when you come back and report to us?
Through the chair to Councilman Miller, after the fact, as proposed currently, within the 60 days that I mentioned, the proposed ordinances reading, within 60 days of that action, we would be presenting to this committee the results of that action. I will envision, though, we will be in communication with the committee through council staff about both leading into an RFP as well as the outcomes of the RFP before the refresh date and actual execution. But we will be formally reporting back to this committee within 60 days of execution of the agreement as drafted in the ordinance.
I think we should have something formally expressed in the legislation that we'll be notified when the RFP is submitted, and we'll be notified when the results come in, and we get the get the results back.
And when,
Okay, Ms. Baker?
just one last question. It says here the next steps will be to go through Board of Control. So will Board of Control be hearing this before you come back to this committee?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Baker, no, but although we will submit the item coming up, the item will be the participation agreement for execution.
All right.
So this ordinance will set the program, and then within that program is the execution of the participation agreement between the county and CCAO Service Corporation, and that is the action that the Board of Control will see, and that will happen. We'll time that to make sure that that is hopefully after passage of the ordinance if approved.
Okay, good. So we will not see it until we hear from you again in this committee.
That's correct.
And I want to say I do appreciate you coming to this committee to explain this program and not just to Board of Control for us to try and figure that out. So I thank you for that.
Okay. Ms. Conwell has another question. That's okay.
Well, I'm stuck on this, the same one, Matt. We're creating this ordinance, right? But we've already been doing this with CCAO. So I know you stated limited power of attorney is the basis in which I guess we must have this ordinance. We couldn't do the limited power of attorney without this ordinance?
Okay.
Through the chair to Councilwoman Conwell, I think there are two answers to that. If I were to turn this over to Kirk and CCO, I think they would advise that we probably can because other counties do. Under our engagement with law department, we believe that this is the right course of action based on code compliance. So that is the reason why we're proposing the program to be able to execute the limited power of attorney, since that hasn't been part of the standard practice in the past.
Okay, and
answers your
that's what I
question.
wanted to get to. And does this ordinance lock us in only with CCAO?
Okay.
No. I would say that back to my original response, I forget what question it was, but we are defining as the county what facilities will be covered under the purchase. Right now, anything that is natural gas, we are purchasing through the CCAO Service Corporation participation agreement, our legacy agreement. As I think you know, our current electricity is split between two purchase agreements. The purchase agreement that we executed last year for some county facilities, and the other purchase agreement outside of this that is done through CPP for other county facilities. So it would not preclude us from separating those. Just so happens that right now, natural gas is 100% being bought through the CCO program. Probably 40% of it is being bought through CCO on electricity currently.
Okay, and I see Mr. Dever is at the podium.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Thank you for Michael Dever with Department of Public Works. Councilman Miller had asked a question in regards to notification. And if we could work with council staff between now and if this item comes before the full council to put the appropriate language in there in regards to the notification that the councilman referenced, we would be able to accommodate that if that's all right. I just wanted to bring that forward.
Is there any reason why we have to pass it out of committee today? What's the hurry?
So I'll just explain the timeline, not necessarily a hurry, Councilman, but the thought that was that we would assume that this would go 3 readings, being an ordinance. And so we had hoped that it would be passed before, if approved, before the summer recess, which this path would be on. If, Mr. Chair, members, you might, I'm on the fly on this one, but if you might consider second reading on this to keep that timeline and still keep it in committee for one more cycle, that would certainly match the our thoughts on timeline. What we're trying to do is make sure we have the participation agreement in place in time for them to purchase the natural gas. Our natural gas contract expires, I believe, on October 31st of this year, and they need to be going out for their RFP for those services.
Oh, okay. You know, my concern is bigger than the notification. we're talking about authorizing the county to enter into contracts without prior approval from the council. I think it's kind of a big deal. I think it raises significant legal questions. I remember we had a process in place that we would do every year in December because we didn't want to have a council meeting a couple days before Christmas. And we would pass a piece of legislation that would allow the administration to do budget adjustments for year end without prior approval, and then they would come back in January and ask us to approve it after the fact, which we would do. Well, the state auditors told us we can't do that anymore, and so we had to change the process where we'd hold a meeting a few days before the end of the year, and we'd get all the budget adjustments worked out, and we'd approve it in advance, and so I think I would like some time to talk to our council legal staff and talk to the law department and work this out, and if it can be worked out, I'd be amenable to pass it under suspension and get it out before the recess. But I think there's a little bit more to it than saying we'll pass it out of committee, and that's my opinion. It's up to the chair to recommend to the rest of us.
Right, well, I'm thinking along the same terms as yourself, Mr. Miller. I think I'm okay with it. I did have an opportunity to speak with Mr. Dever about this, and with the law director or someone from the law department, I believe, and some of my concerns were alleviated after speaking with them. But since there's some questions and you want to speak it over with staff, I think with a course here would be to hold it. And then we can, if we feel comfortable after speaking with legal consultation, to move it along on second reading suspension. I don't think that will be a problem once we iron out some of the questions that we have or some of the concerns we have. I think that'd be the prudent course here. When in doubt, sit it out. So.
To the chair,
Yep.
That's fine. I would just, if you permit me to add to that, just to add context as councilmen and council members review those topics, notwithstanding anything that law department would provide on it. What we would know going into these processes is we would know our historical spend, our historical terms and conditions going into an RFP. Coming out of the RFP, we would know everything except for the final rate. So we would be able to present through any means council or committee would like those known entities and really dial it in, and also then forecast what rates might be in that 2-week period, so that we have a lot of certainty, a lot of knowns going into that refresh date on any one of these RFPs. So we could provide that confidence, certainly.
Okay.
If in the current form you would still consider.
Sure, and I do understand my colleague's concern with that, given some of the items that have come before us after the fact. So I do understand that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold this, and we'll get some further consultation from our staff, legal staff, and from the law department if necessary, in conjunction with your office. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Thanks for the presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Appreciate that. Thank you. And with that, is there any other miscellaneous business from council members? And seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn. I have a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Ayes have it. And this meeting will adjourn at 11:38 a.m.